A tense silence hung in the opulent halls of the Apostolic Palace, broken only by the rustle of papers. Pope Leo XIV, the first American pope, felt the weight of his fledgling papacy, just 5 weeks old. His communications director, a nervous flutter in his voice, reported that the initial press coverage of the Pope's seminary reform announcement had been mostly positive. Yet, a shadow crossed his face as he mentioned Bishop Robert Barron. "Though Bishop Barron is scheduled to speak at that media conference today," he began, and the unspoken hung heavy in the air. The Pope removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Robert has always been passionate about seminary formation," he stated, a hint of history in his tone. "We've known each other for years." What remained unspoken between them was a long-standing philosophical divergence. Both men were undeniably committed to the Church, yet their visions for its future sometimes diverged dramatically. Barron, a renowned orator and founder of the Word on Fire ministry, emphasized apologetics and intellectual tradition, a defender of the Church's timeless truths in a skeptical world. Leo, on the other hand, had built his reputation on pastoral approaches and missionary outreach, focusing on meeting people where they were. The aide, sensing the tension, suggested, "Should we reach out to him before his address?" The Pope's reply was firm, "No. That might appear as if we are trying to influence him. Bishop Barron deserves the freedom to express his perspective." But even as he said it, a knot of apprehension tightened in his stomach. Meanwhile, a continent away, in the quiet dignity of his chancery office at St. John the Evangelist Co-Cathedral in Rochester, Minnesota, Bishop Robert Barron meticulously reviewed his notes for the Catholic media conference. The morning sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on his desk. Known for his eloquence and media savvy, Barron had built a reputation as one of the Church's most effective communicators, reaching millions through his various platforms. His assistant knocked gently. "Bishop, your car is ready. The conference organizers called to confirm your keynote." Barron nodded, gathering his materials, the weight of the moment pressing upon him. This particular conference had gained an unexpected, almost ominous significance. It would be his first major public address since Pope Leo XIV's election just over a month ago. As he slipped the folder into his briefcase, his phone buzzed with an urgent message from a trusted Vatican colleague. "Have you seen the Pope's interview about the seminary reforms?" Scanning the attached article, Barron's expression darkened, his brow furrowing with each passing line. The Pope had explicitly claimed that the controversial seminary curriculum changes were entirely new initiatives, developed after Pope Francis's passing. But Barron knew differently. He had sat in numerous meetings with then Cardinal Prevost, now Pope Leo XIV in March, just weeks before the conclave, where these exact reforms had been discussed in depth and ultimately, after much deliberation, were rejected. "This isn't right," Barron murmured, the words barely audible. For years, he had championed intellectual honesty and transparent communication within the Church. Now, the newly elected American Pope, whom many had hailed as a beacon of fresh leadership, appeared to be rewriting recent history. The stakes were extraordinarily high. These proposed reforms would not merely tweak, they would fundamentally reshape priestly formation worldwide, impacting generations of future priests and, by extension, the very spiritual health of the Church. As his car pulled away from the serene cathedral, driving towards the bustling conference center, Barron wrestled with a difficult, agonizing question. Should he publicly correct the Pope's statement, knowing the immediate media firestorm it would create and the potential personal and institutional fallout? Or should he remain silent, thereby tacitly endorsing what he knew to be an incomplete, if not misleading, account? The camera flashes punctuated the conference hall, a flurry of light capturing the intense atmosphere as Bishop Barron concluded his prepared statement. His voice, usually so measured and compelling, carried an undeniable tremor of conviction. "With deep respect for the Holy Father and his exalted office, I must clarify that the seminary reforms announced yesterday were not newly developed initiatives, as stated. These precise proposals were previously considered and, after extensive discussion, explicitly rejected during multiple dicastery meetings this past March, in which Cardinal Prevost, now Pope Leo XIV, was an active and engaged participant. A stunned, hushed silence fell over the assembled journalists, a pregnant pause that seemed to stretch indefinitely, before erupting into a cacophony of urgent questions, dictaphones thrust forward, cameras flashing furiously. Barron raised his hands, calling for order amidst the chaos. I take no pleasure in this correction, believe me. However, for the sake of transparency, and more importantly, for the preservation of trust within the Church, the historical record must be accurate. I have documentation confirming these discussions and decisions, which I've already shared with the appropriate Vatican offices. In Rome, thousands of miles away, Cardinal Miguel Santos, a man of refined demeanor and one of Pope Leo's closest and most trusted allies, watched the live stream with growing concern. His face, normally placid, tightened with alarm. He immediately reached for his phone, dialing the Pope's private secretary. "This is unprecedented," he stated, his voice hushed but urgent. Barron has essentially accused the Holy Father of deliberately misrepresenting facts. Across the Atlantic, the news spread like wildfire. Catholics on social media were already taking sides, their online battle cries echoing through digital channels, hashtags like #UntruthTruth. In the Church, and Stand with Pope Leo began trending as commentators dissected every single word of Barron's statement, drawing battle lines where none had existed just hours before. Meanwhile, at the Pontifical North American College in Rome, a bastion of American priestly formation, seminarians gathered around televisions, their faces a mixture of shock and unease, watching their American Pope face his first major crisis. Many had deeply admired both Bishop Barron and Pope Leo XIV, one for his intellectual clarity and compelling defense of the faith, the other for his pastoral heart and missionary spirit. Now, they felt agonizingly caught between competing loyalties, forced to choose a side in a burgeoning ecclesiastical drama. By evening, major Catholic publications worldwide were running explosive headlines. Bishop Barron challenges Pope's account of seminary reforms. And, unprecedented, American bishop accuses American Pope of misrepresentation. The Vatican press office, usually quick to issue statements, remained conspicuously silent, a silence that only intensified the speculation and the media frenzy. Cardinal Lucio Fernandez, the Vatican's seasoned Secretary of State, paced the ornate corridor outside the Pope's private study, his expression grim. As the chief diplomat and administrator of the Holy See, he was responsible for managing Vatican diplomatic relations, not only with other countries, but also, crucially, within the labyrinthine politics of the Church itself. This direct confrontation with Bishop Barron threatened to undermine Pope Leo's nascent papacy, potentially eroding his authority and the trust of the faithful, just as he was beginning to forge his vision. When finally admitted, Fernandez found Pope Leo reviewing documents at his desk, his demeanor remarkably composed amidst the unfolding crisis. "Your Holiness, we must issue a response. The media speculation is intensifying. It's becoming a full-blown crisis," Fernandez urged, his voice laced with urgency. Leo looked up calmly, his gaze steady. What exactly did the bishop say? Not what the headlines claim, but his actual words. Fernandez recounted Barron's precise statement verbatim, emphasizing the carefully chosen language. "Notice he didn't use the word lie," Leo observed, a subtle shift in his expression. "That's the media's framing. Robert said the reforms weren't new initiatives, and he's partially correct. The concepts were discussed, yes, but the final proposals, as I've presented them, are indeed new in their approach and implementation. The emphasis, the methodology, that's where the novelty truly lies." The cardinal shifted uncomfortably, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "With respect, Your Holiness, That nuance may be lost on the public. Many see this as a direct challenge to your credibility, a questioning of your integrity. Leo nodded thoughtfully, acknowledging the validity of the concern. I understand. Draft a statement clarifying that while elements of these reforms were previously considered, the comprehensive approach I've introduced represents a substantially new direction. We will acknowledge the previous discussions without conceding to the accusation of dishonesty, for I truly believe my intent was not to deceive. And regarding Bishop Barron, we will express appreciation for his commitment to accuracy and transparency, while emphasizing the importance of addressing concerns through proper channels within the church. No personal attacks or suggestions of disloyalty, Cardinal. That would only exacerbate the division. After the Cardinal departed, Leo remained at his desk, the silence of the study deepening around him. He reflected on the complex relationship between truth, public perception, and the immense burdens of leadership. The seminary reforms were necessary, he was convinced of that, a vital step for the future of the priesthood. But had he, in his eagerness to lead, been too quick to present them as entirely his own initiative, without adequately acknowledging the continuous dialogue that had preceded them? He knew he had a responsibility to be not just accurate, but clear and comprehensive. 3 days of Vatican silence had only intensified public interest in the confrontation. Bishop Barron, back in his chancery office in Winona, Minnesota, was fielding a constant stream of calls from fellow bishops, some supportive, praising his courage, others deeply concerned about the perceived affront to the papacy. "I never intended this to become so divisive," he confided to his longtime friend, Father Mike Schmitz, who had called to offer support and perspective. But when the Pope characterized these reforms as brand new initiatives, developed after Francis's passing, I simply couldn't let that stand. These exact proposals were rejected for good reasons just months ago. Reasons that still hold true for many. "The timing is challenging, Robert," Schmitz replied, his voice empathetic. "Everyone's still adjusting to an American pope. This creates a particularly awkward dynamic, a sort of family dispute playing out on the world stage." Barron sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've tried reaching out through proper channels for 3 days, Mike. Cardinal Fernandez won't return my calls. I'm being painted as disloyal, as a rebel, when my concern is precisely for the integrity of papal communications and the coherence of church governance." After ending the call, Barron opened his email to find an unexpected message from the Vatican Secretary of State's office. His breath caught in his throat as he read the formal but clear invitation. "His Holiness requests your presence in Rome for a private audience, June 16th. In just 3 days, he would meet face-to-face with Pope Leo XIV. That evening, as Barron prepared for the journey, the Vatican finally broke its unsettling silence with a carefully worded statement, released simultaneously to major news outlets. It read, "The Holy Father acknowledges that aspects of the seminary formation proposals had been previously explored under Pope Francis's pontificate. However, the comprehensive approach recently announced represents a substantively new direction that incorporates elements not previously considered. The Holy Father values transparency and open dialogue within the Church, and looks forward to discussing these important matters with Bishop Barron during their upcoming meeting." Catholic commentators immediately noted what the statement pointedly didn't include: any suggestion that Barron had acted inappropriately, or any outright denial of his central claim regarding the previous rejection of the proposals. It was a carefully calibrated step towards reconciliation, a subtle admission of nuance. The overnight flight to Rome gave Bishop Barron time to organize his thoughts, preparing not for a confrontation, but for a candid dialogue. He had brought the full documentation, meeting minutes, position papers, and his meticulous personal notes from the March discussions where the seminary reforms had been debated and ultimately rejected. Upon landing in Rome, he was surprised to find not the usual Vatican driver, but Cardinal Santos himself, waiting to greet him with a warm smile. His Holiness thought you might appreciate a friendly face, Santos explained, a subtle hint of understanding in his eyes as they drove through the ancient, sun-drenched Roman streets. He holds you in high regard, Robert, despite the current situation. Baron nodded appreciatively. I've always respected him as well. This isn't personal, Cardinal. It's about institutional integrity and truthfulness. The Pope understands that, Santos replied, his voice measured. But perhaps there's more context to consider. While similar reforms had indeed been proposed and rejected in March, His Holiness substantially reworked them, Robert. He took the feedback from that initial rejection to heart. The core principles remained, yes, but the implementation approach, the specific details, have been genuinely transformed. The Holy Father feels his initial statement was accurate in spirit. These are new initiatives in their current form, Santos continued, adding with a sigh, though he acknowledges he should have referenced the earlier discussions more explicitly. The transition between pontificates is always challenging, Bishop. Some in the Curia still operate with an outdated sense of papal infallibility, extending even to every public statement. The Holy Father is working to change that culture, but it takes time. Their car passed through the imposing Vatican gates as Baron contemplated tomorrow's meeting. Would it be a genuine dialogue, a chance for profound understanding, or merely a carefully managed exercise in damage control? Morning light, soft and golden, filled the vast spaces of the Apostolic Palace as Bishop Baron was escorted through its marble corridors, the intricate frescoes seeming to watch silently from above. Despite having visited the Vatican many times, he felt the profound weight of this particular audience, the historical significance of the moment. The Swiss Guard, resplendent in their colorful uniforms, opened the intricately carved wooden door to the Pope's private library, a room filled with towering shelves of ancient texts. Leo XIV stood to greet him, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "Robert, thank you for coming," the Pope said, using Baron's first name, as they had done for decades before Leo's elevation to the chair of Peter. After they were seated in comfortable armchairs, an unexpected, almost profound silence filled the room, broken only by the distant sounds of the city. Finally, Leo spoke, his voice calm and clear. "I've been reflecting on your statement, Robert. Your concern was justified, though perhaps the public forum in which it was expressed complicated matters more than necessary." Baron nodded, acknowledging the point. "I tried reaching through private channels first, Your Holiness. I know that communication breakdown is being addressed, and I appreciate your efforts." Leo leaned forward, his expression earnest. "The seminary reforms are necessary, Robert. You, of all people, must see that the current system isn't adequately preparing priests for today's complex challenges, for the demanding missionary environment they will face." "I don't disagree with the fundamental need for reform, Your Holiness," Baron replied, his tone respectful but firm. "My concern was with characterizing them as entirely new initiatives when these specific proposals, or very similar ones, were previously considered and rejected. With your active participation in those discussions, it created a dissonance, a lack of trust." Leo nodded thoughtfully, absorbing Baron's words. "A fair point, Robert. In my enthusiasm to move forward with what I believe is necessary for the future of the priesthood, I didn't properly acknowledge the continuity with previous discussions. That was an error in communication, a failing of precision, not an attempt to deceive, I assure you." The conversation continued for over an hour, delving into the specifics of the reforms, their theological underpinnings, and their practical implications. While they didn't reach full agreement on every single point, both men found significant common ground in their shared, deep commitment to strengthening priestly formation for the good of the universal church. As their meeting concluded, Leo made an unexpected suggestion, a gesture that took Baron by surprise and signaled a true desire for collaboration, not just reconciliation. "Would you consider joining the implementation committee for these reforms, Robert? Your unique perspective, particularly your emphasis on intellectual rigor and effective communication, would be invaluable, especially in those areas where we may still differ. Baron, genuinely moved by the offer of trust and partnership, responded without hesitation, "I would be honored, Your Holiness." Later that day, the Vatican press corps assembled in the vast Sala Stampa, buzzing with anticipation, as Pope Leo XIV and Bishop Barron entered together for an unexpected, unprecedented joint press conference. The Pope spoke first, his voice resonating with authority and humility. "Bishop Barron and I have had a deeply productive dialogue, a testament to the open and fraternal spirit that must characterize discourse within the Church. I wish to clarify that while these seminary reforms, in their current comprehensive form, are indeed new initiatives of my pontificate, they build upon discussions that began during Pope Francis's papacy, discussions in which both Bishop Barron and I actively participated. I should have acknowledged this continuity more explicitly in my initial statements." Barron then stepped to the microphone, his presence radiating both strength and humility. "I thank the Holy Father for his openness to dialogue and his candor. While we may not agree on every single aspect of these reforms, we share a profound, unwavering commitment to strengthening priestly formation for the challenging realities of the Church in the 21st century." The Pope then made the official announcement that Barron would join the Implementation Committee, bringing his celebrated expertise in intellectual formation to complement the pastoral emphasis already present. As questions poured in from journalists, the two churchmen demonstrated a united front, speaking with a rare candor and demonstrating how disagreements could be aired and addressed while maintaining both truth and unity. Catholic commentators worldwide praised both men. The Pope for his remarkable humility in acknowledging incomplete communication, and Bishop Barron for his courage in raising legitimate concerns while steadfastly remaining loyal to the papacy. It was a masterclass in church statesmanship. 2 weeks later, Bishop Barron attended his first meeting of the Seminary Reform Implementation Committee in Rome. The diverse group, representing different regions, theological perspectives, and charisms within the Church, worked diligently to integrate various aspects of priestly formation into a cohesive, robust curriculum. Bishop Barron's emphasis on intellectual rigor beautifully complements our focus on pastoral formation and missionary outreach, Cardinal Santos observed during a break, a genuine smile on his face. "This is exactly the balanced, integrated approach we need for our future priests." During the same break, Cardinal Fernandez approached Barron, a hint of respect replacing his previous apprehension. "I must confess, Bishop, I initially advised against bringing you onto this committee. I thought it would legitimize dissent, perhaps even encourage further public challenges to papal authority. But your contributions today, your insights and your evident desire to serve, have already profoundly improved our approach. You've demonstrated true loyalty through constructive engagement." Barron smiled, his eyes twinkling. "The Church needs honest dialogue, Cardinal, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable." In seminaries worldwide, the initial controversy had unexpectedly sparked meaningful conversations among faculty and seminarians alike about transparency in church governance and the importance of both fidelity and intellectual honesty. The seminary reforms were evolving into something stronger, more comprehensive, and more broadly accepted through this collaborative process, incorporating elements from both Pope Leo's initial vision and Bishop Barron's crucial insights. 1 month later, Pope Leo XIV celebrated Mass at St. John Lateran, the ancient cathedral of Rome, his voice filling the vast basilica. In his homily, he reflected profoundly on the interwoven themes of truth and communion in the Church. "The body of Christ," he preached, "requires both unity of purpose and diversity of charism and perspective. When we approach our disagreements with charity, with a genuine desire for truth and understanding, our differences do not weaken the Church. Rather, they strengthen it, allowing us to see more fully the multifaceted wisdom of God." Truth spoken with love becomes not a weapon, but an opportunity for profound growth and deeper communion. After Mass, the Pope and Bishop Barron conversed amicably, their earlier tension visibly absent, replaced by a comfortable collegiality. "Your Holiness," Barron said, a reflective tone in his voice, "I've been reflecting on how this unfolded. Perhaps I could have approached my concerns differently, less publicly at the outset." Leo smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "And I, Robert, could have been more precise and comprehensive initially. But look at what has emerged from our dialogue: a stronger, more nuanced reform proposal, and perhaps a model for how dialogue and transparency can heal wounds within the Church. Sometimes, the Holy Spirit works through our very imperfections to bring about something greater." Journalists observed the two churchmen departing together, deep in conversation, their figures silhouetted against the Roman sunset. What began as a potential accusation, a public challenge that threatened to define a new papacy, had transformed into a powerful, real-life demonstration of how the Church could navigate profound disagreements while faithfully maintaining both truth and unity. Both Pope Leo XIV and Bishop Barron had remained profoundly faithful to their convictions, to what they believed was right and true for the Church, while finding common ground through dialogue and mutual respect. They offered a model of honest, constructive engagement that is sorely needed in an increasingly divided world, and indeed within the Church itself. Their journey from public confrontation to collaborative leadership underscored a timeless truth: that the pursuit of truth, when undertaken with charity and humility, ultimately strengthens the bonds of communion. If you found this story compelling, if you believe in the power of truth and dialogue within our Church, consider subscribing to our channel for more Catholic drama series, historical deep dives, and thoughtful analyses. Click the bell to be notified when our next feature drops. Share your thoughts in the comments below. How do you believe Church leaders should best handle public disagreements? And what role do you think transparency plays in fostering trust among the faithful? Your engagement helps us continue to bring these important stories to light.